She group texted her friends. Should I keep him around? He's boring but my rent's been paid for 8 months. LOL. I was listed in the group chat. When she realized, she said, oops, but seriously, should I? I replied to the group, decision made for you, and left the chat. Her rent's due tomorrow. Last night my entire relationship imploded in a single text message. Still processing it, but I need to get this out somewhere. I 36M was dating Megan 32 for almost 9 months. We met at a mutual friend's wedding last summer. Things moved pretty fast. Chemistry was good, conversation flowed, and we just clicked, or so I thought. About 2 months into our relationship, Megan lost her job. She was a marketing manager at a startup that suddenly went under. No warning, no severance, nothing. Bad luck, terrible timing. I saw how devastated she was. She just signed a lease on a new apartment a month before moving from a roommate situation to her own place for the time. Here's where the money part comes in, and I want to be clear about something. I'm not some desperate guy throwing cash at women to keep them around. I'm a software developer who does well financially, no debt, solid savings. Helping her with rent temporarily wasn't going to break me. When she was panicking about making rent, I offered to cover it until she found a new job. It seemed like the right thing to do for someone I cared about who was going through a rough patch. We had a clear discussion about it. This was a temporary loan, not a sugar daddy arrangement. She promised to pay me back once she was on her feet again. I made sure to get this in writing via text. Just to be clear, this is a loan until you're employed again, and you'll pay me back once you're stable. Right? Her response: absolutely. I promise I'll pay you back every penny once I find a job. You're saving my life right now. For context, her apartment isn't some luxury high-rise. It's a basic 1-bedroom in a decent area, $1,400 per month. Not cheap, but not outrageous either. I'd transfer the money to her account each month and she'd pay her landlord directly. So that's how I ended up covering 8 months of her rent. She had interviews, a couple of promising leads, but nothing quite worked out. There were tears, frustration, and a lot of I feel terrible about this conversations. I believed her. I also thought we were building something real, so I didn't mind helping temporarily. Last night I was working late, had my phone face up on my desk while coding. A notification popped up from a group chat I didn't recognize. I glanced down and saw Megan's name along with several others. The preview showed Megan. Should I keep him around? He's boring but my rent's been paid for 8 months. LOL. My stomach dropped. I opened the message thinking maybe there was context I was missing. There wasn't. It was a group chat with 5 of her friends. I was confused about how I got added. Turns out Megan had borrowed my phone earlier that day to call her phone because she couldn't find it, and must have accidentally added me to this group chat while using my device. The full message was exactly what I'd seen, followed by a bunch of laughing emojis from her friends and comments like "Milk it, girl. Does he have a brother? I need rent money too. Boring but that apartment though." As I was reading through this nightmare, another message popped up from Megan. OMG, wait, Matt's in this chat. How did that happen? Then almost immediately, oops. But seriously, should I? Not an apology. Not embarrassment. Just doubling down on treating me like an ATM while her friends egged her on. I felt like I'd been punched. 9 months of my life, thousands of dollars in loans that I now realized were never going to be repaid, and I was just boring guy who paid her rent. I typed out my response to the entire group. Decision made for you. Then left the chat immediately. My phone started blowing up with calls and texts from Megan. Matt, that's not what I meant. It was just girl talk. You know I appreciate everything you've done. Please call me. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I pulled up my banking app and looked at the recurring transfer I had set up for her rent. It was scheduled to go through tomorrow, the 1st of the month. I canceled it, then I opened a document and started calculating exactly how much I'd paid in rent for her. $11,200 total. I took screenshots of all the transfers, saved them to a folder, as well as our original text conversation about this being a loan. Then I blocked her number, went to bed around 3 a.m., barely slept, woke up to 47 missed calls, 23 text messages from different numbers, her friends presumably, and several emails, all with escalating panic as she realized I was serious. The latest email came through an hour ago. I don't have the rent money. They'll evict me. You can't just cut me off like this. Yeah. Actually, I can. Update 1. 24 hours later. It's been a full day since the group chat incident. The barrage hasn't stopped. After I didn't respond to any of her messages, Megan showed up at my apartment this morning. I only know because my doorman called up. Sir, there's a woman named Megan here insisting she needs to see you. Says it's an emergency. It's not an emergency, Tom. I don't want to see her. Please ask her to leave. Will do, sir. 20 minutes later, Tom called again. Sir, she's still here and getting quite upset. Should I call security? If she doesn't leave in 5 minutes, yes. She left, but not before creating enough of a scene that my neighbors definitely noticed. Then came the messages from her friends. Apparently, I'm now the villain in this story. According to them, I led her on and promised to take care of her, and I'm now abandoning her when she needs me most. Interesting how the narrative shifted from milk him for rent money to he's obligated to support her indefinitely in less than 24 hours. One of her friends, Jess, actually sent me a voice message saying, you know, she can't afford that place on her own. What's she supposed to do now? She only has until tomorrow before rent is due. I finally broke my silence and replied to Jess. She could try getting a job. It's been 8 months. That opened the floodgates. Turns out Megan has had a job for the last 3 months. A decent one too, at a competitor of the company that let her go. She just didn't tell me because, in Jess's words, why would she mess up a good thing? So not only was I boring, I was also being lied to about her employment status so she could continue to have me pay her rent while she saved her money, spent it on herself, who knows. I was skeptical about this revelation coming from Jess, so I did some digging. Checked Megan's LinkedIn. Sure enough, it showed she'd started at the new company 3 months ago. I also found photos on Instagram where she tagged her new workplace but hadn't shared those posts with me. The evidence was clear. Called my bank just to make absolutely sure that payment wouldn't go through tomorrow. It won't. Also double-checked that I hadn't added her as an authorized user on any of my credit cards or accounts. I hadn't. We kept our finances separate except for the rent transfers. The rent is due tomorrow. Not my problem anymore. Update 2. 3 days later. The has come and gone. Megan's rent went unpaid as planned. Yesterday I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello. Matthew. This is Sandra, Megan's mother. Great. She called in reinforcements. I understand you and Megan are having some relationship troubles, but I'm very concerned about her housing situation. She says you've been helping with her rent and suddenly stopped. I took a deep breath. Sandra, with all due respect, this is between Megan and me. Did she tell you why I stopped paying? She said there was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She was caught explicitly stating she was using me for money while calling me boring. She also lied about being unemployed for the past 3 months while I continued to pay her rent. Silence on the other end. Oh, she didn't mention that part. I'm sure she didn't. More silence then. Well, regardless, she doesn't have the money for rent right now. Her landlord is threatening eviction if she doesn't pay by Friday. Couldn't you help her just this once more for old time's sake? The audacity was breathtaking. No, Sandra. I couldn't. Your daughter is employed and has been for 3 months. She chose to lie to me while taking my money. She can figure this out on her own. Sandra's tone changed completely. I had no idea she was already working. I'm sorry, Matthew. I wouldn't have called if I'd known the full story. I appreciate that, Sandra. Goodbye. I hung up, added her to my contacts so I'd recognize if she called again. Later that day I got an email from someone claiming to be Megan's landlord. Apparently she gave him my contact information and told him I was responsible for her rent. The email seemed unprofessional and possibly not even from the actual landlord. No letterhead, grammatical errors, and sent from a Gmail account. I replied with a simple message. I have no legal obligation to Miss Matthews. I am not a co-signer on her lease, nor have I ever agreed to be her guarantor. Please do not contact me again regarding this matter. Forwarded that exchange to my lawyer just in case. He confirmed I have zero legal obligation here. I'm starting to realize how deep this deception went. She really had constructed an entire financial safety net using me as the unwitting foundation. And when caught, rather than apologize, she and everyone in her life just expected the arrangement to continue. Update 3. 2 weeks later, things have calmed down somewhat. The constant barrage of messages has slowed to a trickle. I did get one update through a mutual friend. Megan managed to pay her rent at the last minute. Apparently by taking out a high-interest payday loan. Not my problem. She's been telling people I financially abused her by controlling her through money and then cutting her off without warning when she didn't behave how I wanted. The mental gymnastics required to frame herself as the victim here are truly Olympic level. Our mutual friend didn't buy it. Dude, she was literally in a group chat bragging about using you for money. Everyone knows she's full of it. That was validating to hear. At least some people see through the narrative she's trying to spin. I've been going through our text history from the past few months and the signs were there. Comments about how lucky she was to have me. Always when rent was due, questions about my bonus schedule, suggestions for expensive dates that always seemed to come. When I mentioned tightening my budget, I was so focused on being supportive during what I thought was a tough time for her that I missed the pattern completely. I did get a formal email from her yesterday. No apologies, just a payment plan offering to repay the $11,200 at a $100 per month. That would take over 9 years to repay. I replied with a single word, no. Then I set my own proposal: full repayment within 12 months or I'd take her to small claims court with the evidence of our original agreement that this was a loan. I have texts from the beginning where she explicitly agreed to repay me once she found employment. No response yet. Not expecting one either. I'm prepared to write off the money as an expensive lesson in seeing people for who they really are. Final update. 2 months later. Well, this chapter of my life is officially closed. After my ultimatum about repayment or small claims court, Megan finally sent a real apology email, not for public consumption. There was no audience to perform for, just between us. She admitted she'd been employed for nearly 4 months, not 3 as her friend had said. She acknowledged taking advantage of my generosity and the trust I'd placed in her. She also confirmed my suspicion that she'd been saving the money she would have spent on rent, building up a nice cushion while I continued to pay her bills. I got comfortable with the arrangement and didn't want it to end, she wrote. What started as genuine gratitude turned into something ugly. I'm not proud of who I became in this relationship. For the time since this all blew up, it felt like honest communication. She included a bank transfer receipt for $2,800, the equivalent of 2 months' rent, and a signed agreement to pay $700 monthly until the debt is cleared. That's a 16-month repayment schedule, longer than I'd asked for but reasonable enough. I accepted the terms mostly because I want this finished. 2 payments have come through on schedule so far. As for me, I'm doing fine. The money stings less than the deception did. I've started dating again casually, but I'm much more careful now. No more stepping in as a financial safety net, no matter how compelling the story. The silver lining. This experience taught me to watch actions, not words. Megan said all the right things about appreciation and temporary assistance, but her actions and that unguarded moment in the group chat revealed her true character. Her rent is due again today, but this time it's definitely not my problem. Sometimes the best revenge isn't something you do to someone else. It's simply stepping away and letting the natural consequences of their actions catch up to them. In Megan's case, the consequence was simple. She had to start paying for her own life again, and that apparently was the worst punishment of all.